So I want to spend some time thinking about jQuery selectors. One of the things you're going to need to do a fair bit is to target either an individual element on a web page or a series of elements that have something in common. And what I have here is a simple HTML document. There's very little in it. I've defined a style called red up in the head section, and I have a heading, a horizontal rule, 3 paragraphs, and some buttons. And I'll show you what this looks like. So here we are in our web browser, and I have nothing more than a title, 3 paragraphs, and each paragraph describes what it is. It's a paragraph with an ID of 1, 2, or 3, then a text input, and 2 buttons. That appear to do nothing right now, and they don't do anything because we haven't told them what to do. So let's go back to our HTML and see what we have here. In the body section, I've just defined 3 paragraphs and given each one a specific attribute, an ID of 1, 2, or 3. And then in my input, I've given that an ID of selector. And pay attention to these IDs because we're going to be using them in just a moment. This first button, it just is really an ahref, but it's using Bootstrap to look like a button. It has an href of hash, which means don't go anywhere, just don't do anything. And then it has an onClick attribute, and it's calling a particular function, a JavaScript function. So let's go down and create that function. And then we'll go back and look at how we're calling it again. So function, and the name I'm giving this is change class, and then it takes an argument. And I'll just use x as an argument. And then we can do whatever we want in that function. So let's go back up and look at this onClick handler again. Change class, and then I have $, and then an opening parentheses, and then in single quotes, hash selector. Well, that actually targets this. That goes by ID. The hash mark, or the pound sign at the beginning, means find the element with the ID of whatever follows the hash mark. So I'm looking for this particular element. Now this is a text input, it's a form element, and I'm calling an attribute on that saying val. In other words, all of this just means get me the value that's entered into the text input. Okay, well that's simple enough. So when I call change class, whatever is typed in here in the text input actually gets passed as a parameter to the change class function. So down here, what do I want to do? Well, you recall that I defined this style called red up here. Let's take what's passed to us, the ID, that we're going to type in an ID for a particular paragraph, and let's apply that class to it. And we can do that really easily. And we do that by using jQuery's $ syntax. And then we want to look for a hash mark, because we want it to get a particular ID. And then I'm just going to append, using the plus sign, whatever's passed. And I'm going to add class, which is a jQuery a method or function. And the class I want to add is red. All right, let's save that. Now let's go back to our web page and reload this and see what happens. So if I type in 1, it actually changes 1 to red. If I type in 2, it changes 2 to red. But if I type in 2 or 3 with a capital T, well, there's actually nothing with that ID anywhere because IDs are case sensitive and nothing happens. But if I change it to a lowercase three and click that button, it changes it to red. Okay, what about this reset all styles? How am I going to take care of that? Well, we have this second button, which is also calling a function, remove styles. So let's go define that function down in our script tag. Function remove styles. And it takes no arguments. And what do we want to do in this? Well, think about it for a minute. Let's go back here. These are all p tags. And they're paragraphs, so they have an opening p tag and a closing p tag. Can I just, in one fell swoop, select all the p tags on the page and do something to them? Sure I can. I'm going to use the same jQuery syntax, but this time instead of selecting a particular ID or selecting something with a particular class, I'm just going to select the p tags. And what I want to do here is really simple. I want to remove class, and the only class I've added is red, so I can remove that. Let's save that, go back to our web browser, reload the page, and try this out. So I'll set 3 to be red, and then I'll remove the styles. That works. Let's set 1 to red, and 2 to red, and 3 to red. And now if I remove the styles, bang, they're gone. Well, that's pretty simple. Is there anything else we can do with this? Sure there is. There's lots we can do with this. Let's go back to our HTML and add a few more things. So I'm going to add some buttons here. BR, just to give me some blank lines. And I'll add a button. I'll just copy this one and rename it to what I want. So let's change this. I'm going to give it a function, and the function I'm going to call is add borders. And what I want to do, I'll just change the text here first. Add borders. So I'm going to reload the page. What I want to do when someone clicks on this button is I want to add a border, a red border around all of these paragraphs, all 3 of them. So how am I going to do that? Well, first of all, I need to create the function called add borders. So let's go do that. Function add borders. And what do we want to do? Well, we want to target all the paragraphs, so we can just use jQuery's P syntax. And now I want to give it an attribute. Well, there's a couple of ways of doing this. I suppose I could just define a new style, but we already know how to add a style using the add class and how to remove it by using the remove class. So let's instead add our own attribute just for fun. And there's a jQuery function called attr, and it takes 2 parameters. The first one is, what attribute do you want to add? And what I want to add here is a style attribute. And the second one is, what do you want the attribute to be? And here I want it to be border 1 pix solid red, just to give it a red border. So let's save that and see what happens. Go back and reload our page. Does our first one still work? Yes, it does. What about add borders? Notice how it added a red border to all paragraphs. Can we remove those borders? Well, we have to add a button or something to do that, so let's go back and give that a whirl. I'll add another button here called remove borders. And I'll just name this remove and change the name to remove borders. And now I need to go define that function. Function remove borders takes no parameters. And again, I want to select all the P tags. And I want to simply remove attribute. And the attribute I want to remove is remove all the style attributes. So let's save that and see what happens. Let's reload this, add the borders, and now remove the borders. And that's pretty straightforward. So you're going to find yourself having to select things in jQuery a lot. And just remember, there's 3 ways, or 3 basic ways you can select things in jQuery. You can do it using this syntax, and I'll just create an imaginary function here, function test. If I wanted to select an item with the ID of my ID, that's how I select it, and then I do whatever I want after the fact. If I want to select something by class, I put a dot in front of the class name, so this will select everything with the class, the CSS class of red. And if I want to select an actual HTML tag, I can just type in the HTML tag, so select all the divs. Now the difference between selecting by ID is you're only ever going to get one response or one item returned because IDs are unique. Red, or any class name, will give you one or more, or none if there's nothing with the class of red, but you get the idea. And similarly, there is one or more div, or potentially no divs on a web page. So you know that this is going to give you at most one, this can give you one or more, and this can give you one or more as well. All right, that was pretty straightforward.